What's up guys, my name is Jedith, and this video is going to be an update on the Demon Hunter hero talent tree Fel-Scarred. There was a new build that was pushed to the alpha just a few days ago, and we were actually included in the patch notes. Now on first glance, these patch notes looked pretty normal. It seemed like they were just, fixing some things that weren't working that we assumed were going to work. They were just kind of tying up the loose ends and kind of putting the ribbon on the package. Well, after digging into it, there's actually a lot to talk about, so let's dig into it. Fixed several issues with Burning Blades and Demon Surge not interacting with other talents. This is referring to those particular hero talents. Burning Blades and Demon Surge were not working with AMN, so any means necessary. It wasn't converting, so those abilities were doing fire damage and they were not being converted to chaos damage with this talent. They are being converted now, but we'll get there. Don't get too excited yet. The next point is Demonic Intensity Tooltip updated. Activating Metamorphosis greatly empowers I-Beam / Fel Devastation, so Fel Dev for Vengeance, I-Beam for Havoc, Immolation Aura, and Sigil of Flame. Demon Surge damage is increased by 10% for each time it previously triggered while your demon form is active. So this is just updating the Demonic Intensity tooltip. This one was missing the second half of the tooltip in the previous build. It was very vague. I think it like started to say what it was doing, but it wasn't very clear. But now it says exactly what it does. So every time you use Demon Surge, you get a stacking buff of 10% damage. The very first Demon Surge that you do actually does get that first 10% buff. You're not really wasting any other than when you reset it with meta. So your first Demon Surge, which is going to be your Annihilation, gets 10%. Your Death Sweep gets 20%. Then you meta and you reset that buff, unfortunately. And then from there, you have 5 Demon Surges to use. Again, starting at the first one gets 10%. Then you go all the way up to the 5th one, which is benefiting from 50%. So they've clarified this tooltip and it is working as expected. Fixed an issue that prevented Soul Sunder, Spirit Burst, and Sigil of Doom periodic damage from being correctly empowered. That's what it says. We'll talk about it. Consuming Fire now correctly functions with all other Immolation Aura talents. Again, what the patch notes say, playtesting tells us something different. And then for Havoc, Violent Transformation now also resets the cooldown of Immolation Aura in addition to its current effect. When you activate Metamorphosis, the cooldowns of your Sigil of Flame and Immolation Aura are immediately reset. The previous build, it was only resetting Sigil of Flame, but now it is resetting Immolation Aura as well, which is actually pretty powerful when you think about how that's going to work with Rage Fire builds. So with the fire inside, you're getting 2 charges of Immolation Aura naturally, and then you're able to meta and get those 2 charges back. That's a lot of Immolation Auras feeding into Rage Fire. And we're also getting this hero talent called Flamebound, where Immolation Aura has a 2-yard increased radius and 30% increased critical strike damage bonus. So there's a lot of potential here for Rage Fire if you decide to take those talents. Right, so I logged on Tuesday night. I saw these patch notes. I was like, sick. Let's go into a dungeon. Let's, hit some target dummies for a while. I'm going to take some logs and we'll look at it. I had expectations. I assumed certain things were going to be doing more damage than they were before, but I wanted to see how it actually all worked. So first I took some logs, just hitting a dummy. Actually, this was 3 dummies. It was the 3 dummies in the back here. So I was in combat for 5 minutes and 44 seconds, just using these talents here. Nothing crazy, no essence break, no movement for damage. I think I might have had tactical retreat just to get some fury back, but other than that, it was all very straightforward. And to my surprise, things like Demon Surge, Burning Blades were still extremely low, probably around the amount that they were before these changes happened. So I was really confused. In theory, if Burning Blades is being converted to chaos damage and getting the damage bonus from being chaos, right? Our mastery increases our chaos damage. So it's getting that damage amplifier. And then there's also things like, chaotic disposition. The damage should be a lot more. Same with Demon Surge. Demon Surge was kind of around the same spot when I did logs in previous builds. So I assumed, okay, we're going to tack on another 30-40% on top of that once it gets amplified by mastery. And then once it's chaos damage, it's going to be benefiting from chaotic disposition and know your enemy and all that stuff. So it should be pretty high. Well, it's not. So then I was like, okay, maybe it's just the target dummies. So I went into some dungeons and took some logs. So this is a log from the, what dungeon was it? City of Echoes. Arakara, City of Echoes. It was a 15-minute dungeon, so pretty quick, short and sweet. Everything looks to be about the same. Demon Surge didn't do that much damage. And you would think because it's a dungeon, right? There's a lot of AoE, a lot of large pulls. Demon Surge has the potential to do a lot of damage. Well, not so much. Same with Burning Blades, it barely did anything. Burning Blades did less damage than Fel Rush, and I wasn't even using a Fel Rush build, so I was barely pressing the button. So I was like, okay, something here isn't right. This can't be right. There's no way that it's right. So I reached out to my buddy Topple, and he gathered a group of people to start digging into this and figuring out what is going on. And obviously these people are way smarter than me, so they were actually able to track it down. And we have answers. So the first thing we have to just get out of the way is that in these patch notes, it says, Burning Blades and Demon Surge not interacting with other talents. It's referring to any means necessary. They weren't interacting with any means necessary, i.e. they weren't being converted to chaos damage. So let's take a look at the combat log here. You should be able to see it on the left side of my screen. Just gonna get into Demonic, and I'm gonna hit it with an Annihilation to get a Demon Surge. So there we have it right there. Demon Surge hit Raider's training dummy for 62,000 chaos damage. So it is being converted. Problem is, even though it's being converted, it's not getting the damage bonus from our mastery. Same with Burning Blades. You can see in the combat log, it is being converted to chaos damage. That doesn't mean anything for us right now because it's not getting the damage bonus. The spell is basically just having its damage type changed, but not gaining any of the benefits from that. Burning Blades and Demon Surge was fixed to interact with AMN, but there's still something wrong happening. There's still something not quite hooked up. It's just not getting the damage bonus. The damage type has been changed to chaos, but it's not getting the damage bonus. Now, because that is not happening, that also means it's not interacting with chaotic disposition. So we're not getting that damage bonus either. So while we were digging into that, we made some other discoveries of things that are just absolutely broken with this talent tree. So Topple went ahead and made a post in the Fellhammer Discord, kind of just laying it all out here. TLDR. Burning Blades seems to accumulate damage pre-armor, bugged in a way that's beneficial to the player, and does not work with all talents, notably Any Means Necessary and Fiery Demise for Vengeance. So what that means, let's just take a look at what Burning Blades does. Your blades burn with Fel energy, causing your Chaos Strike, Throw Glaive, and auto attacks to deal an additional 10% damage as fire over 6 seconds. So what we have to make note of here is that Throw Glaive and our auto attacks, before we take Any Means Necessary, are actually just physical damage. So when they're physical damage, that means that they are mitigated by an enemy or a player or a target dummy's innate armor that they have. Generally, when you're fighting a target that's of equal level to you, that armor is mitigating around 30% of the damage. So Burning Blades is taking 10% of the value and converting it to fire damage before that armor percentage is calculated, which is in a way beneficial to us, but it shouldn't be working that way. Burning Blades is currently accumulating at a roughly 30% higher rate than the tooltip for the talent indicates. The current formula appears to be the following: base damage pre-mitigation times 1.05, which is just like the Chaos Brand modifier. So as an example, take a Throw Glaive physical hit of 6,239 damage. This currently results in 3 ticks of 285 damage. Based off the tooltip, you would expect 3 ticks of 208, or 218 due to the Chaos Brand modifier. This is a difference of 37%. Since Throw Glaive is physical, we'll assume a 30% physical damage reduction from armor on the target. Adding this multiplier results in a 283.8745 value, which is close enough to reality to be comfortable due to higher precision math being done on the server side. So it's close enough, right? This is consistent when talented into Burning Blood for Vengeance with a real hit value of 6,136 and a tick value of 306. This, however, is not consistent when using Fiery Demise for Vengeance with Fiery Brand on the target with a real hit value of 6,132 and tick values of 308, 39% deviation, which indicates that Burning Blades does not work with Fiery Demise despite being on the allow list for Fiery Demise. So if you're not up to date on what that means, certain talents or things that have buff modifiers essentially have a list, and you have to add certain abilities to that list to basically give them the okay that they can be modified by that talent. So similarly, Any Means Necessary does not seem to work with Burning Blades outside of changing the spell school to chaos, with a real hit of 8,377 and 374 ticks and 33.5% mastery. So yeah, this damage that's coming from Burning Blades, which is originally starting as fire, should be converting to chaos damage, which it is, but it's also not benefiting from that extra damage from your mastery. There's a lot of things going wrong here. There's also some like potentially unrelated things that could be related. So as you know, with demonic intensity, this makes your I-beam, immolation aura, and sigil of flame turn into new abilities. So how this is supposed to work, just like it does with chaos strike turning to annihilation and blade dance turning to death sweep, the damage gets increased by 30% for those abilities. That's what happens when they get empowered. It's just a raw damage increase for 30%. Well, what's happening is when Sigil of Flame gets converted to Sigil of Doom, the upfront damage of Sigil of Doom is that increased 30% damage, but the periodic damage, the dot damage from Sigil of Doom, is not increased. It's just regular old Sigil of Flame. Intended, unintended, it's probably supposed to increase the dot damage, but it's not. No any means necessary. Demon Surge 1 did 14,463. Demon Surge 2 did 16,252. Then when he takes any means necessary, Demon Surge 1, it actually crit for him, but non-crit would be 14,675. Pretty much the same amount of damage as the non-any means necessary one, right? Demon Surge 2, 15,856, non-crit. Demon Surge 3, he crit again, but otherwise would be 17,136. So you can see the damage is not being amplified by mastery at all. Even though it is being turned to chaos damage, it's not getting that extra benefit. And you can see me right below. I knew it, man. I knew there was something weird going on. And then he says incoming Jedith YouTube video, which here we are. Now, the one good thing is that it is actually affected by Know Your Enemy, which, hey, at least that works, right? Gain critical strike damage equal to 80% of your critical strike chance. So when those abilities crit, they do get the extra crit damage of our crit. So at least that is working. And now just one more thing I want to make note of. Demonic Intensity is set up to work for both Havoc and Vengeance, right? It works for Havoc's I-beam and it works for Vengeance's Fel Devastation. Turns it into some other ability. What is very important to know is that Demonic Intensity works with Collective Anguish as well. So Collective Anguish makes your I-beam summon an allied Vengeance Demon Hunter who casts Fel Devastation. That extra Fel Devastation that we're getting is being converted into the new empowered Fel Devastation, which is adding a lot of value to Collective Anguish. So if there's ever a point where, you know, we're in a position where we're having to choose between Collective Anguish and, say, Elysian Decree or something else, Collective Anguish just has so much more power packed into it now compared to these other ones. So just something to keep in mind. So yeah, I mean, like, these notes aren't inaccurate. These hero talents are indeed interacting with these other talents now, but not in the full capacity, not in the right way. Tooltips did get updated. That's true. Fixed an issue that prevented Soul Sunder, Spirit Burst, and Sigil of Doom periodic damage from being correctly empowered. Yeah, this one just isn't true. The Sigil of Doom periodic damage is not being correctly empowered. It's not being empowered at all. Consuming Fire now correctly functions with all other Immolation Aura talents. So essentially what should happen, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use both of my Immolation Auras, get them both on cooldown. Then I'm going to use Meta, and that should reset it, right? It's going to reset my stacks, my charges, and it should also change it into Consuming Fire. Well, let's see what happens. We're going to use both charges. We got a proc there. Okay. So now it stays Immolation Aura. I got one charge of Immolation Aura, and now I can't use any of my Consuming Fires. That doesn't seem right. I don't think it's fully operating as it should, unfortunately. Oh, and just in case you were wondering, there haven't been any visual updates to Fel-Scarred at all. We still have the basic Demon Surge animation that was in last time, which is, you know, it's cool, it's all right, but when you go into meta and you have all these new abilities like Sigil of Doom, that looks exactly the same. The new I-beam looks exactly the same. Consuming Fire, still no animation for it. So I'm really, really hoping that they do something in terms of animations for those abilities. I think it's a great opportunity to give us something kind of wild and flashy, and you know, seeing some of the other hero talent trees that different classes are getting and some of the animations and just cool abilities that they're getting, it would be really, really sad if this is all we got for Demon Hunter. So we'll have to see what happens in the next build that we get. Maybe this will all get fixed and sorted. One thing to mention is that the Eldraki or Eldrachi Reaver, however you want to say it, this hero talent tree has not been updated at all. This build or in the build previous, which makes you kind of wonder, right? Like, why hasn't there been any updates? Are they maybe taking a rethink? Are they going to come at us with maybe something different in place of this? Or are they done with it? Let's hope that's not the case. Anyways, we'll just have to see what we get in the next build. If you guys want to see me run some of the brand new War Within dungeons as Havoc, check out my other channel. I'll put a link to it down in the description. I post full runs over there, 15 to 30 minutes of these dungeons, and you can go and kind of see how Havoc is looking in those dungeons. Of course, the damage and everything doesn't really matter because nothing has been tuned, but if you want to see what the dungeon looks like, if you want to see how Havoc plays and some of the mechanics and whatnot, go check it out and make sure to sub to that second channel. All right, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.